And welcome to another edition of Tomato Talk. Top of mind, advancing through obstacles. What are your obstacles? Oh, I'm sure there's quite a few different things that we all have to deal with and work through. And then we work through them, and then we're on the other side of it, and we're able to make things happen. But getting through that challenge sometimes it takes a little bit of logic, takes a little bit of creativity, takes a little bit of family support, takes little bit of friend support, takes a little bit of a whole lot of things to actually make it happen. And where does all of that come from? Where does it begin? Well, sometimes it begins with a career. Other times it begins maybe with a hobby. But there's always that common factor in there, those people that are surrounding us, our family members, our friends, our co-workers, to make the whole thing work. Well, today's guest is an interesting one because you got a career that would not necessarily, you wouldn't think of in the world of creativity. Logic, yes. And then he joins an organization where I'd say creativity is more important, an important element in order to further one's growth within that group. And then what does his family think about all of this stuff? Who only knows? And who is he going to get different kinds of support from, comments from? Who only knows? But not only has it blended everything together, he's been successful at absolutely everything, including writing a couple of books to throw that one into the mix of everything. Today's guest not only wrote 3 books, not only got designations within his career of engineering, not only got the designation within the world of public speaking, Toastmasters, but he's created a website and he's created webinars. He's created so many things. And it really is my honor to share with you today the creative warrior secrets of Seth Greenwald. And not only that, he's a Sherpa. And I love that story that you're a Sherpa. Definitely caught my attention. So, Seth, thanks so much for joining us here.
Oh, you're welcome, Brian. You made me feel like an important tomato. Thank you very much.
Tomatoes is super important, man. It's whatever we do, it's in the top of our mind, what we really feel that we should be doing. And heck, if we're not advancing, that's not a good thing. Hopefully nobody has any obstacles, but hey, look, that's not reality. But you've mixed in 2 different things that are like totally from let's say from an outsider's standpoint. They seem like they're totally different from one another. The world of creative speaking, writing a book, not easy. And then you're as an engineer. So I gotta ask, what was the family reaction to all of this?
They thought I was crazy,
Okay.
which I am. But I can tell you that it's an interesting thing to going from engineering to designer to manager to Toastmaster to author. I kind of want it all, Brian. I want it all, and it all. You want to hear my story on where it started?
Go right ahead.
All right. People say they like this story, so I'm going to tell your audience about my ivy plant. It all started when I had an ivy plant on the ledge when I was a senior at Cooper Union Engineering School in the East Village. Engineering is good. I was into the calculus and the geometry and the thermodynamics, logic, like you said. I was learning the ropes of engineering and how to analyze things. And I looked out the window and I was in the East Village back in the 80s and 90s. It was a hip place. People had nice fedora hats on. They had like punk rock spikes out their head. Now, I was an engineer. I only wished I had spikes out my head. I never actually put spikes in my head. But what I did was to have a ivy plant on my ledge. And this ivy plant was in the family for so long. And my parents gave it to me when I was going to college. And I kept it nice and alive all the way until I was a senior in college. And there it was, the ivy plant. I was graduating. What was I going to do with my ivy plant? I decided one day that I should draw my ivy plant. I should draw it. I never, engineers, they don't draw, but I had a hunch that I should draw the ivy plant. The first time I drew the ivy plant, oh man, Brian, it looked like a cartoon of like a tomato. It was really a horrible, horrible drawing. And I'm like, I know I can do better than that. How can I do better than that? Why can't I see this ivy plant as it is? And then, back then I really enjoyed reading books. And I still enjoy reading books because you can learn a lot by reading. So I found this book called Drawing on the Right Side of Your Brain by Betty Edwards. Have you ever heard of that, Brian?
No, can't say I have.
Oh, man, that book changed my life. It transformed me to who I am now, the Sherpa, because what it did was to help me bypass seeing things from my left brain, right? My engineering brain, my analytical, logical brain, my break it down brain. And it showed me how to see reality, how to see things from my right brain, how to see things whole, how to see things without words, how to see things clearly. So the second attempt, after I read the book, it just took a few hours to read the book. I redrew my ivy plant, and Brian, it was truly an amazing thing. I looked down at the paper, and it was like the ivy plant was just popping out of the paper. I drew it such a beautiful ivy plant, and that's when I realized I was, in fact, certifiably crazy, and I graduated from engineering school and went to a Pratt for industrial design for art. It was basically an art school, so I just enjoy having both left brain and right brain capabilities, and that's why I am who I am today. This,
I had the opportunity to lead a panel discussion, and it was with a number of engineers, planning people. And one of the things that we discussed was the personality of the building as it represents the brand of the company. So I get it. I really do. I especially, I would think buildings that are no longer just the brick and mortar kind of a thing. You have so many different ways of designing a company with steel. I'm guessing that adds a lot more flexibility in the actual design. So I could see it from that standpoint, from where we're at right now. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, not to date it, but I don't know. Do you get any input from your family on this besides the corporate world about the idea of tapping into one's creative side a little bit more?
Oh, it's funny you should say that, because my dad, he was he's still, and my dad's 85 years old. He's still around. Every time I talk to him, he says, "Seth, I was the best math teacher in all of the world." I'm like, yeah, Dad, you were the best math teacher, because what he did every day. We grew up in the Holbrook, Long Island, which is exit 61 in the LIE. You might know, you're from Long Island, Brian.
Yep, in and around that area. Yep, absolutely.
So I grew up in Holbrook.
I would say it's walking distance, Mr. Sherper.
Oh, so we're related. So I grew up in Holbrook, and my dad was a math teacher in downtown Manhattan. So back then in the 70s, 80s, 90s, it was a long train ride. So it took him like 2.5 hours to get to work every day, back and forth. And he, just for that, I give him the best math teacher award in the world. But he also said something more profound to me. He said, "Seth, I'm always right. I've never been wrong." I'm like, yeah, okay. And as a kid, you don't really take that seriously, but it kind of gets into your skin and into your psyche. So it was something that was bubbling under my skin. Then I saw a shirt that represented this idea, and I'll tell you what the T-shirt says. And I actually do have the T-shirt up in my room. And what the T-shirt says is this: "I'm an engineer. To save time, let's assume I'm always right."
Okay.
It actually exists. I actually have that T-shirt, and it's really helped me that shirt has helped me to see where my strengths, being logical, knowing that 1 + 1 is 2, knowing that things are the way they are, but also knowing that things aren't really the way they are. Nothing is really black and white. Between black and white, between dualistic thinking, there's billions and billions of shades of gray. Okay? So it's really helped me to understand how to be an engineer, how to be a logical engineer, but how to be also a very creative-minded designer that sees alternatives and sees things in a way that is not stereotypical. And I thank in a strange way, I thank my dad for that.
Yeah, I'm thinking that if you have a T-shirt on that says, I'm always right, and you're always espousing that you're always right, I wonder what goes on internally in you that's saying this, is that you really do want to be right all the time. And if you're double checking or actually taking really truly taking a look at what you're saying to make sure that it is correct. And if you add the from your dad's point of view, from your point of view, if you say something like that you're always correct, you probably have that, let's say you tap into the creative side of it. Whereas, yes, and it all depends on maybe how you're looking at something, that it is correct. It is correct in your way of perceiving something, as in it's not always cut and dry. It's not always black and white. It's not always yes and no. Sometimes it is that maybe thing that gets tossed into the equation. And is that the kind of thing that you're bringing to you do a number of seminars, your talks, your presentations. Is that the kind of attitude that you're bringing to people and want them to really understand that there were different ways of looking at something, to be that, I love you, creative warrior. That's the good,
Yes,
nicely stated.
it's exactly what I'm bringing to people as I teach them the ways of seeing clearly, the ways of listening clearly, the ways of seeing things in more than one way. My first book was called Secrets of a Creative Warrior, and it's simply more than 50 techniques to to mess up your the way you see things, to shake it up. So it's something that's always been helpful for me. One of the things in the book I show is this. Can you see? This is
Yeah.
a classic DC, not AC/DC, but just DC. And what it is that most people, when they try to solve problems, they go directly to the answer, right? They come up with an answer, and they go directly to the C, which is convergent thinking, right? They converge into that one answer. Oh, that's the answer. That's right. But what I teach is the D part, which is called divergent thinking, right? Divergent thinking. You want to suspend your judgment. You want to brainstorm, but with yourself or with your team. You want to not judge and not compare the ideas you have until you have a lot of them. One of the big principles in the book is called quantity over quality. So you're just collecting and collecting and collecting, and you're not judging the ideas until you want to, right? Until you say, okay, team, it's now time to figure out which idea is the best idea. That's when you go into the phase of convergence. But until then, you stay in divergent. And divergent is the fun part. And what I teach in my upcoming seminar is called Improv to Improve. I teach improvisational communication. And what improvisational communication is basically co-creating something together with your team. Now, you don't know what it's going to be. You don't know where you're going to wind up, but improv is all about building something together. I call it the BIT mindset. Build it together. Now, what are you building? You can build anything. You build relationships, you build solutions, you build scenes, you build stories, whatever you want, but you're building it along with your team. And it's improv because you don't know where you're headed. If life is a journey of discovery, then improv is my vehicle. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I love improv. I've been more on the comedy side of improv, but that's not really what you're talking about here. It seems like this is a little bit more in the world of like a mastermind group, but really giving everybody the guideline that there is no guideline, and the freedom to spit out ideas that are different, that may work, that may not work, and the ideas build upon ideas that might get you into a direction. So you're taking improv and really using it in a very serious manner, adding in that creativity side of it.
Yeah, I tell people we're going to have some serious fun this Wednesday, 2 days, which is my when the webinar is a free webinar Wednesday at 7 p.m. And I tell them we're going to have a serious fun together, because my type of improv is improv for business. It's applied improvisation. It's not the comedy improv. It's not about being funny, but it's about having fun with your colleagues. Having fun. What does that mean? If you go back to when you're a kid, every day you had fun. You played, right? You played games. You played with each other. How can we bring that attitude of play, that joyful sense of play, back into the adult world of work? And that's what we're going to go explore.
Well, where I think some of that has to do with is this fear of being ridiculed, the fear of being wrong, the fear of being looked down upon by your peers. And that's where I think, the mastermind group is set up where, hey, we're there to share different ideas, whether they work or doesn't work, it really doesn't matter. The purpose of the group is to share thoughts, as opposed to like a networking group. You go into a networking group, the purpose of there is to tell everybody, how brilliant you are, what value you bring, and that kind of thing. You seem to be really stressing the fun part of the creative element, allowing folks to come up and explore different thoughts, whether they're logical, knowledgeable, or just flat out on the creative side of it. So how
Yeah,
do you set the tone for that? Are you
yeah,
forgetting the seminars that you do, but in a work environment, how do you set the tone with everybody where they understand that it is a safe place to explore these ideas?
yeah. Well, it's a lot about music. You know what? I hear you about the work, but in the webinar, we're going to be looking at a lot of videos. Like one of the videos is by the Talking Heads called "Stop Making Sense." You know that one, right? With the Talking Heads, and he's
Mhm.
David Byrne, who's still around on Broadway, American Utopia. He was the head of Talking Heads, 70s, 80s, 90s, and he's having so much fun. He's having so much fun. How do we bring that sense of fun, that sense of play, that into the workplace? And what I like to do is not, I like to allow people to be themselves. It's not all about I'm at work, I'm at work, I'm at work. Well, who are you? Let's start a meeting by saying, how was your weekend? As simple as that. How was your weekend? Talking to people as if they were humans, right, as opposed to workers. And you try to, and you see where that I like playing the game where it's called Two Worlds at work, and we try to start with something we've done in our personal life, and as we're talking about what we've done in our personal life, we meld it into work uh, issues. So it's a lot about improv. It's a lot about saying yes and just building off of what your partner is talking about, what your team is talking about, but you just don't like jump right into the solution, into the solutions. You kind of like flow into it. So
Yeah,
that's
the yes
one
and
way.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
The yes and is beautiful. And for folks that don't understand it, think about this. If Seth says something and I say yes and, so I'm agreeing with him and then I'm going with thing. Or if it's yes but, to go the extreme of that one, Seth said something, I say yes, Seth, but here's where we differ. Well, that's not going to build upon itself anywhere near as much as it would if you say yes and. Yes, but sounds much more like a court of law. You got the prosecutor and the defense. Yes, but man, you're totally wrong.
Exactly.
As opposed to yes, and here is where we can continue to go with that. So I think that's fantastic. And I love the idea. Absolutely, truly love the idea that you're doing that in a, let's use the word serious, or it can be applied in a serious work environment and then go from there. But I got to tell you, mate, going back, you got an engineer career. What was it what was your triggering moment that you like said, I got to add more creativity into my life, or you just wanted to add more creativity in your life?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like 20 years ago, I felt like disengaged from everyone. I felt disengaged from reality. I was kind of like watching. It's like sitting on the sidelines, just watching everyone play the game. I'm like, what is happening? Why is this? And that it was because of my, engineering mind, my left brain mind needed to prepare. Needed to prepare things before I said them. Right. That doesn't work because once you're prepared, reality moves on without you. So I had to find a way to stay in the playing field, right? Staying in the game, keep my head in the game. And so around 20 years ago, I said, what is it? What is it? And I, of course, joined our lovely Toastmasters meeting, and I was hooked from the very beginning, not because it was the preparation, right? Because I do enjoy preparing speeches and polishing the speeches and giving a perfect speech. But I really fell in love with, as you know, is table topics, right? Which is the impromptu speaking part of a meeting where you throw out a random question and you have to answer that question. And at first I was like flabbergasted because I couldn't do it, right? I didn't have any time to prepare. I only had a second or two before I had to say something. And But as I practiced and practiced, I became better and better. And I found that this practice of improv, this impromptu communication, helped me to stay in reality, right? It helped me to keep my head in the game. It helped me to stay on the cutting edge of time. And it changed my whole point of view and create. And that's where, to answer your question, creativity, you only find real creativity in the present moment. And if you're not present in the moment, you're not going to meet your creative warrior self. So, right?
Oh, absolutely. Now I understand why Seth and I chatted, beforehand about, coming on the show, and I mentioned that, we're live, unscripted. And I mean, I just say that it just is, that kind of thing. I don't put any thought to it, but I just kind of love that. And now I understand why you kind of grasped onto that whole thing. And yeah, table topics is great. Table topics, you can't really prepare for it. Maybe you could prepare the structure of your answer, but you'd have no idea what the question is. So you go there. But you're right. It's that living in the moment thing. That's really where it's at. And by doing that program that you do with what you're teaching these students, fellow workers, others that are entrepreneurial, want to add more creativity to it. If you're always prepared for something, now you're going in with preconceived notions, and all you're doing is going to spit out your thought, and so be it. You're not listening. So there goes your listening skills, where that's really brought into the whole thing, and really not looking for a definitive answer right away, but enjoying that whole process. So it all fits. It definitely fits. That's why. So I really, truly was so excited about having you on and showing the differences of that engineer thought versus the creative thought, or the Toastmaster thought, or the public speaker thought, or writing a book. And that. Now, you've written a couple of books. How did you do that? Was that structured, or you a little bit more free flowing? I knew I'm sure you had an end goal in mind with each of the books, but kind of like how you got there kind of fits in with exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly, Brian. It's so perfect how I wrote my second book, called Answering the Call of Your Creative Warrior. I knew I wanted to introduce the concept of creative warrior and how everyone has an inner creative warrior. So that my goal was to be able to introduce that to people. But how? But how was I going to do it? How was I going to write each chapter? Where was I going to go? How was I going to structure the book? And what I decided to do was, you can change a habit in 28 days. You've heard that, right? So my book has 28 chapters, and it's a semi-autobiography of how I went from what I call kind of an unruddered boat, you're just flowing without any control, to finding my creative warrior, a motorboat. And how I did it was that this was a few years ago, and I was still commuting into the city by Metro North. And every day I said, I'm going to write from 8 o'clock to 8:20. I'm going to write 20 minutes, and whatever comes into my head, I'm going to put it down on paper. And that just blew me away, because I didn't know what I was going to write each day. I connected with my muse. I connected with my inner creative warrior by writing a book about my inner creative warrior. And it was so exciting every day to get into that train and wonder, what was I going to write about? So it's a very creative, it's a very free-flowing way of writing. Stephen King says he does it this way. It's something that's called pantser. The style of writing is writing by the seat of your pants, as opposed to J.K. Rowling, who did the Harry Potter. She's called a plotter. She plots down everything she's going to be writing before she writes. But I kind of had a middle ground called plantser, which is between plotting and pantsing. And so I knew where I was going. I had a somewhat of a structure, but I still didn't know what I was going to write about each day. And it's extremely exciting, Brian, to write that way, to be that way. And I wanted my life to be that way. I wanted to always be able to tap into my creative warrior, into my flow state whenever I wanted to. And that's really what I'm going to be talking about and teaching on my Improv to Improve webinar, how to tap into that flow state whenever you want, especially when you're at work with other people.
Hmm.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, that's good. I approach this thing that way too. When I'm having a guest, it's a little bit different. When I'm doing it by myself, sometimes it's turn on the camera, play that little music, and then okay, I'm sitting there like, where are we going to go with this one today? So,
All right.
so be it.
Exciting,
Sometimes
right?
it's about issues we're having. Sometimes it's about successes. It's changes, whatever whatever it just might be. So, it's good. Living in that moment is great, and I think we all learn a lot more about ourselves when we're doing that. When we're truly living in the moment. All right, Cindy, you have the web seminar coming up. We'll put the link up, so you don't even really have to talk about whatever the link is, but just a little brief explanation as to what people can expect.
Oh, they can expect lots of serious fun together. It's the doing that really teaches you, that really helps you to advance. I'll give a little bit, a few stories like I told today, and a few uh, tips on how to access that state of flow. But mostly, we're going to be having a lot of fun by doing actual exercises, doing improv games, doing storytelling, co-creating a story together, doing a little bit of spontaneous speaking. It's only an hour, but we're going to pack in a lot of participatory play. So
So, who's it actually more appropriate for? The entrepreneur or someone who is at a company and still looking to build their career, maybe stand out a little bit more, get a
yeah,
little bit more comfort in sharing different thoughts.
yeah, it's for anyone who wants to connect with their team, collaborate with their team, have fun with their team, be in the present moment with their team. So it could be an entrepreneur, who, you can't work in a vacuum. Entrepreneurs need teams. They need to work with the customers. So it's for anyone and everybody. So I have almost 100 people signed up. I would say half of them are entrepreneurs and half of them from the corporate uh, sphere. I only have like 5 seats left. So if you want to be one of those 5 seats, sign up
I don't
soon.
think I only need one seat. I don't need all 5. So that leaves 4 other ones that are out there for people. So yeah, look, anybody that's in the entrepreneurial, you're right. None of us work alone. I don't care. You don't work alone. There's always referral partners and associates and people you're sharing thoughts with, your business plan with. But certainly those folks that are looking to enhance their leadership skills, I think this is a great thing. So Seth, I'm really excited for you as to what you're doing, how you're blending the engineer world, the Toastmaster world, the creative world, the logic world, all of this stuff together, and showing people from an actionable standpoint how they can actually do that and put the whole thing into motion. So again, thank you so much. It's great. You want to share your website again? We'll put the links up for it. And next time you're on, I want to know more about this Sherpa thing.
No, absolutely. I would love to be on again. It's exciting to be a fellow tomato with you, and I appreciate you giving me this time.
It's absolutely my pleasure.
Yeah.
Seth, have a great day. Really appreciate it again. And then we'll put the links up for that one. So we'll, as you could, just put the links up over there. We'll make sure it gets shared on everybody's site. And it's an absolute pleasure to meet another Toastmaster friend.
All
Keep
right,
doing what
Brian.
you're doing, my friend.
Yep, you too. All right, take care.
The world of Toastmasters. Fantastic. It's a creative bunch, without a doubt. There's always a takeaway on those things. You always meet such great people because they're just always looking to improve. In the case of Seth, he's looking to improve with improv. But it's not even just improv from a communication standpoint. Something I wound up doing. I did the improv comedy side of it. But he's looking to use the improv more in the corporate setting when it comes to growing and sharing ideas and creating a safe environment, creating an environment where it does make sense for you to say yes. And here's another way of approaching something. It's all good. Really is great. So bravo to Seth for that. If you want to attend, well, we certainly have the links up for that. And of course, any of his books. It's always good to see that. So let's go with the big actionable idea over here. Find a group of people, attend one of these webinars also, but find a group of people where you are sharing ideas with. And if it's somebody that is coming at it from a different point of view, make sure when you start that meeting that it's very clear with everybody, even if they disagree, to go yes and let them continue to make their comments that way. All good. Hey, my friends, do what you do best, and that is speak well, speak often, and live inspired.